Hello everyone and welcome to another video, and today in this video I'm going to be doing my top 6 disappointing Doctor Who stories. Now this is a bit of a response to TJ Productions' top 10 disappointing stories video, but I couldn't really think of any other sort of Doctor Who stories that I found really disappointing. This is just my opinion, and if you like these stories then that's fine, you have your own opinion. And this sort of covers a range of different mediums for Doctor Who. So we've got a couple of books in here, and a few TV stories as well. So without any further ado, let's begin the video. Okay, so at number 6 we have Sick Building, which is actually a 10th Doctor and Martha book. Now, for those of you who've been with my channel for a good few years now, you know that I reviewed this a while ago, and you might remember my thoughts on it and how I sort of perceived it as to be a really crap Doctor Who book. And I wouldn't say it was damn right awful, but I think I just remember being really let down by it. There are some good things to be admired about this book, such as the characterisation of the 10th Doctor and Martha, and I did quite like some of the supporting characters, but I think what really lets this book down is the completely anticlimactic ending which this book unfortunately has. This is the only Paul Margs book which I have read. Now Paul Margs does get a lot of flack for his Doctor Who work, I believe, but I quite liked his Big Finish audios, but yeah, I don't think I will be reading any more Paul Margs books if this is what his sort of level of delivery is, if that even makes sense. I'm not going to ruin the ending, but if you have read this and you know what the ending is, then you might agree with me that when I was reading it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. I thought, is this trying to insult my intelligence? Because I know a lot of the new series books are aimed at younger children, and I read this when I was about maybe 17, so going back quite a few years. I'm 21, so yeah, quite a few years ago now. Yep, I wouldn't really recommend this to you because obviously I found it to be really disappointing. Feel free to check out my review for my full thoughts on it. But yeah, like I said, there are a couple of good things about it, so it's not all bad. It's just the ending that really annoyed me. It was just ridiculous. I could not believe what I was reading, and I just wanted to throw it across the room, because it was just so. I felt really sort of. It was as if somebody was patronising me. Like it felt as if the book was patronising me. It was that bad. Yeah, it's just a really crap. Well, not really crap, but a pretty poor Doctor Who book in my personal opinion. So yeah, that's number 6. Now let's move on to number 5. Okay, so at number 5 now we have another Doctor Who book. Now this was written by Stephen Cole, and it features the first Doctor, Ben and Polly. And does it feature Jamie as well? Do you know what, I can't remember because I was so disappointed by this book. And it is 10 Little Aliens. Now, this is the 50th Anniversary Collection Edition reprint, so you can still buy this. Well, you can buy this, it's very cheap. And I was really looking forward to this because, judging by the synopsis, it sounded like a really good Doctor Who story. And when I did read it, it did take me quite a while to read, because the main problem I think 10 Little Aliens has is the pacing is just all over the place, but a lot of the time it's really quite slow, and like I said, it did take me a while to finish. It felt like a bit of a Hobbit story with the characters and everything, but it just dragged on quite a lot. I don't know if that's because I was feeling a bit down during that time I was reading it, or but I just remember it, you know, being really quite slow. I think the characterisation of the first Doctor was pretty good. I'm not too sure about the other regulars, the companions, but other than that, I just found it to be really sort of unengaging and not very interesting. And it was just such a boring book. I remember being Absolutely, incredibly bored by it because, well, it's just unfortunate really because I got this for Christmas, so I didn't really pay any money for it, but yeah, like I said, I was really looking forward to reading it, but at the end of the day, it just turned out to be really disappointing. So yeah, that's 10 Little Aliens. Now let's move on to number 4. At number 4 now we have a television story, and that story is Hell Bent. Now, of course, the previous episode was the masterpiece that was Heaven Sent, which actually did win an award, and rightly so, because that story was just so incredibly different and unique, and it featured just the Doctor and another villain, and it was really well executed and really well written. And then the following episode, it just was completely destroyed by Hell Bent, which was so heartbreaking to see, because after watching Hell Bent, I just sort of sat there and thought, how the hell was that? How the hell are these 2 episodes written by the same person? It just ruined everything Heaven Sent built up, and I think the main problem that Hell Bent has was the fact that Clara returned, Stephen Moffat brought her back, and that also destroyed the emotional impact Face the Raven had. Sort of said, well, if you liked Face the Raven, I don't care, because I'm gonna sort of shit all over that, and yeah, I'm gonna bring Clara back, because I think Face the Raven, it had its problems, but I think overall it was a good story, and then it was quite a good end for Clara, and it was a bit different to see a companion go sort of near towards the end of the series and not at the end. And then that was completely ruined, and Clara was brought back to life. What made it even more annoying for me was the fact that I didn't really like Clara anyway, and I thought we were going to get a big showdown between the Doctor and Rassilon, but no, that wasn't the case. We spent the whole episode pretty much underneath Gallifrey with Clara, and the whole Ashilda me character I didn't care for. I thought she was really quite annoying. I have nothing against Maisie Williams, but the whole character and the whole setup of that was just, it was just awful. It was, and it sort of makes me quite uncomfortable thinking about it, because it sort of ruins the character of the Doctor, because he shot one of his own kind, and it just means that the whole never cruel or cowardly quote is bullshit, because it just sort of doesn't apply anymore. When Hal Bent came along, it just sort of kicked it out the window pretty much, and it was just I think the only good thing about that episode was the performances and the direction. It was just the whole plot and the whole. It was just so disappointing. I was hoping for a showdown between the Doctor and Rassilon, like I said, but just the whole thing was complete and utter shambles. It was very interesting seeing the whole fan reaction, because there were some fans that absolutely hated it, and there were some fans, admittedly in the minority, that actually quite liked it. But I think the majority of that was the fact that people actually did really quite hate it, and it was quite funny to see the reviews and the rants from certain people. I'm not going to name and shame, because I don't want to start a whole debate thing whether or not you like or dislike Hell Bent. But personally, I found it to be the biggest letdown since Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. I'd say it's pretty damn bad, and if you haven't watched Hell Bent and you're sort of just sort of started watching Doctor Who, then you're going down a long path of disappointment, I'm afraid, because it really is a terrible piece of television, and quite frankly, an abomination of storytelling. So yeah, that was number 4 with Hellbent. Now let's move on to number 3. Okay, so at number 3 now we have Rags, which is written by Mick Lewis. Now, I did hear a lot of negative reviews about this particular Doctor Who book, but I wanted to try and prove people wrong that actually it wasn't as bad as people say. It's just the general consensus, and I was hoping, I was hoping to be part of the minority that actually did quite like it, but no, that was not to be. Rags is quite possibly one of the worst pieces of fiction I have ever read. It's a very thin book, as you can see, so it won't take you that long to read. It's about the same size as your average new series book, but this, there is barely anything good to say about this because it's not for the younger readers. I can definitely say that. It's definitely not a children's book. I can definitely say that. If you like swearing, if you like cursing, if you like really disturbing shit, then I think this is probably the book for you. Surprisingly, this is a third Doctor novel, so I was quite excited by that aspect of the book. And the actual synopsis did sound really interesting, and I did really like the cover art as well. But this is where the whole saying of never judge a book by its cover comes into play, because honestly, I can see why people really hate Rags, and it is just so... I honestly don't know how to describe it, because it's not as insulting as Sick Building, but it is a pretty nasty piece of Doctor Who writing. And as far as dark stories go, this is very, very dark. There is so many what the fuck moments that just make me want to cringe, like, just thinking about it. Oh god, I don't really want to say what happens in this book because it might disturb some of the younger viewers. So I'm just going to leave it up to you to experience this for yourself, and you might understand why I really don't like this. And the funny thing is, I was told by a friend that apparently Mick Lewis, the author of this, is was in prison for a while. I don't know if he still is in prison, but after reading that, I am not surprised. He has done another Doctor Who book called Combat Rock, which apparently is just as bad as this, and apparently Victoria gets raped in it, because that is actually a second Doctor book. But this is terrible. I would not recommend this to anybody at all, even if you're a third Doctor fan like me. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. If I could give a score, it would be 0 out of 10. It is just absolutely atrocious. Do not read Rags, okay, guys? This is just a warning, but if you want to read it, then on your own head be it. But this is quite frankly disgusting. Okay, so at number 2 we have Asylum of the Daleks. Now, I was really excited about this episode. The whole premise sounded really good, and it sounded like an explosive Doctor Who season opener. And this is when the new series started to do like movie-style blockbuster episodes, which I thought was an interesting move. And what did we get? Well, we've got something which was really well directed, really well produced, really well acted, but not incredibly well written, unfortunately. There was a lot of stuff in this episode which was sort of promised but never delivered. For example, we were promised that every Dalek was going to be in this episode, like every sort of variety, or what's the word I'm looking for? Every kind of variant of Dalek was going to be in this episode. And did we get every Dalek ever? No, we didn't. There was even a Doctor Who magazine to promote this sort of series with, and it had sort of all the Daleks on the front cover, and it came with a pretty cool poster of the front cover. And yeah, I mean, we got some Daleks in there, such as the Special Weapons Dalek and the some of the classic Daleks from the 60s, but other than that, it was not fulfilled. Our expectations weren't delivered, if that makes sense. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't really like as well. The whole sort of drama between Amy and Rory, and the fact that Amy can't have kids, it sort of felt really quite disjointed, but it was supposed to increase tension, I guess, but it didn't really work. And yeah, it was just not a very good episode. I think Nick Curran directed it, and I think he did an absolutely fantastic job. And like I said, the production's really good because I really like the sets, but I think what really lets the story down, sort of similar to Sick Building, and it's the ending. The ending is just sort of ruins Doctor Who pretty much. Well, not entirely, but it does a little bit. And all the Dalek stories that come after that completely sort of contradict Asylum of the Daleks. It was just a mess. The ending is basically, well, you know what the ending is if you've seen it. Sort of the Daleks forget who the Doctor is and forget his name, and the whole cliche of Doctor Who gets put into play, which seems to be a sort of an ongoing theme of the Moffat era, particularly in Series 6 and 7. The whole Doctor Who thing, the whole who is he, what's his name, because that's the name of the Doctor is the finale of that series, and I don't really remember an awful lot about that. But yeah, Asylum of the Daleks is... there are some good moments in it when the Doctor gets terrified of the Daleks, because we need a bit more of that. We need to see the Doctor getting terrified of the Daleks a bit more, because if the Doctor isn't scared of them, then we're not going to be scared. So I'm glad sort of Steven Moffat did include that element and sort of bring the scare factor back a little bit. But overall, the whole idea of the story and the whole Parliament of the Daleks thing was just really dumb, and the Prime Minister of the Daleks, don't even get me started on that, because, I mean, this story, it was a guilty pleasure for a while, but then I just sort of, I couldn't really watch it anymore because of the whole idea of it was just so dumb. I respect all of the performances. I thought they gave it their all, the actors, but the writing, the script was just pretty damn crap. The trailer for this episode was really good, but the trailer is a masterpiece compared to what we actually got in the end. Yeah, really quite disappointing, that one. So yeah, that was number 2 with Asylum of the Daleks. Now let's move on to my number 1 most disappointing Doctor Who story. What is my number 1 most disappointing Doctor Who story? Well, in my personal opinion, the most disappointing Doctor Who story of all time is The Eaters of Light, which was an episode from Series 10, and it was written by none other than Rona Munro, whose last contribution to Doctor Who was in fact Survival, which is a story that I really liked. I did find it a little bit overrated because of the fact it's the final classic Doctor Who story, and it gets a lot of attention because of that. But this story, I was excited for a number of reasons. Like I said, returning classic Doctor Who writer. Actually, that is the only reason why I was excited for this episode. I thought there was a list of other reasons why I was excited. But it did sound like an interesting story. And when they announced a classic writer was going to be returning, I didn't expect Ronan Munro to come back. I thought they were going to announce somebody like Terrance Dicks or Andrew Cartmel or Ben Aranovich. But personally, just because I enjoyed Survival does not mean I necessarily want to bring back Ronan Munro. That's if I was the showrunner. But yeah, we got The Eaters of Light, which I can't really remember most of. I've only watched it once, and I can't remember most things about it. There is a couple of things that I remember, like when the Doctor throws the popcorn out the way. I think that was probably the best part of the episode. As for the characters, they were boring. The villain was really easy to kill. A very anticlimactic story as well. And it was just, I mean, when the characters are boring, the story is probably going to be boring as well. And the story was tediously boring. It was 45 minutes, felt like a whole hour. It dragged on quite a bit, and you sort of wonder, when is the story going to kick in? And the whole ending is just a bit ridiculous because a lot of the characters end up killing themselves pretty much, and they're like volunteering to do it. And there's like sort of this big epic celebratory moment when they all jump into this sort of like portal thing, and the whole thing was just it was just shambles really. The direction was quite good, I guess, but overall it just wasn't very good, and it was really disappointing. I was quite angry of how disappointing it actually was, because I think what also makes the Eaters of Light a very sort of forgettable episode is that it's sort of stuck in between two very good episodes. So we've got The Empress of Mars, which came before it, and after that we got World Enough in Time, which was a fantastic story in my opinion. But in the middle of that you've got The Eaters of Light, which is a shame because it's pretty much overshadowed by those two stories. It's just a really disappointing piece of television, to be honest with you. It is not good at all. I mean, the acting's good, you know, they did the best they could with what they were given, which is, you can argue that's quite a common theme going through the Peter Capaldi era. There's a lot of stories that, even though they're pretty bad, Peter Capaldi does give a very good performance regardless of the terrible script that he gets sometimes. But yeah, Eaters of Light is really disappointing. I know there are a lot of fans, a lot of classic fans that are very disappointed by it as well. I just sort of wish they would have got another classic writer in, to be honest. I don't know why they didn't get Terrance Dixon or Andrew Cartmel, but we got Rona Munro back, which, like I said, I was excited by it, but I'm not even the biggest fan of Survival, to be honest. Even though I love the Seventh Doctor, I think it's a little bit overrated. But yeah, The Eaters of Light, what happened? What happened? You know, it was just, there's a bit of promise, and then the execution just wasn't there. The story, even the story itself, the whole idea, the concept was just sort of came out of nowhere, and it wasn't really, the whole plot wasn't constructed very well, and it wasn't good, to be honest. And I think it's probably one of the worst stories of the new series, and definitely one of the most forgettable Doctor Who villains of all time. I don't even know what the villains are called. I don't know if they're called the Eaters of Light, but I literally can't remember anything at all about that episode. I probably won't watch it unless I do a marathon. So yeah, that's my #1 most disappointing Doctor Who story. So that's that really. Thank you very much for watching this video. Comment down below and tell me what your most disappointing Doctor Who stories are. Like I said, this list is completely my own personal opinion, and if you like any of these stories that I've just mentioned, then you know, I'm not blaming you, I'm not sort of bashing you using this video. This is literally just my personal opinion, saying what my most disappointing Doctor Who stories, well, the stories that I found the most disappointing, as the title suggests. So that pretty much concludes this video, so thank you very much for watching, and take care, and I shall see you whenever my next video will be. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.